Welcome back to the channel World Coins Master everyone to another fascinating journey into the world of rare and valuable US coins. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most intriguing and surprisingly valuable coins ever to come out of the US Mint, the 1970s D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, or as most people know it, the 1970s D. Lincoln penny. While it may look like an ordinary penny that you could easily overlook in your pocket change, some examples of this coin have turned out to be worth a staggering $590 million due to rare minting errors, mistakes, and unique characteristics that set them apart from the millions of regular pennies made that same year. This story isn't just about a small copper coin, it's about the mysteries of minting, human error, and the incredible rarity that can transform a 1-cent coin into a national treasure. So sit back as we explore every detail of the 1970s D penny, from its origins to its unusual varieties, errors, and the reasons why collectors would pay millions for one. The 1970s D Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint, easily identified by the small D mint mark located beneath the date. It features the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB can be found near Lincoln's shoulder on the obverse side. The reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial, which had replaced the original wheat ears design in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Most of the 1970s D pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams, like other pennies of that era before the US Mint changed the composition to zinc in 1982. But within that enormous production run, a few special examples were born from errors, die variations, and accidental anomalies that made them extraordinarily rare and highly sought after by collectors. To understand why a simple 1970 D penny could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, we have to understand the nature of minting errors and how they occur. Every coin starts as a blank piece of metal called a planchette, which is fed into a coining press where dies strike it with thousands of pounds of pressure to transfer the design. If something goes wrong at any point during that process, the result could be a unique coin unlike any other. Some 1970s D Lincoln pennies display doubling on the date or lettering, known as a double die error, which happens when the die itself receives two slightly misaligned impressions from the master hub. Others have off-center strikes, die cracks, or anomalies in the mint mark placement, all of which can significantly increase value. One of the most famous 1970s D penny errors involves an overdate variety. This means that an older die, such as one originally made for a previous year, was accidentally reproposed or altered to create a new year. In some cases, traces of the earlier date can still be seen beneath the newer one, which makes such coins highly collectible. For example, the 1970s small date and large date varieties from the San Francisco Mint are well known among collectors, but the Denver Mint also produced coins with subtle inconsistencies in the date size, spacing, and mint mark position. While the San Francisco versions are already valuable, some of the 1970s D pennies that exhibit signs of die reworking or repunching of the D mint mark are even more remarkable because they were likely struck during transitional or experimental phases at the mint. There are also reports of 1970s D Lincoln pennies struck on the wrong planchets, such as a few examples made on 1970 dime planchets or foreign coin planchets, which would cause them to be smaller or lighter than normal. These types of errors are especially fascinating because they give a glimpse into how chaotic and complex mint operations can be. Imagine a copper penny being struck on a planchette meant for a different denomination entirely. The design doesn't fit properly, parts of the lettering or date might be missing, and the coin ends up with a unique size or metallic composition. These wrong planchette errors can make even ordinary-looking pennies worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars depending on their condition, rarity, and verification by professional grading services. Another reason the 1970 D penny is so interesting is the possibility of double die obverse errors. On some rare examples, you can see doubling on the inscriptions like Liberty, In God We Trust, or even the date itself. Under magnification, the double details appear like a shadow image slightly offset from the original letters or numbers. Such doubling occurs when the die used to strike the coins receives a second impression at a slightly different angle during preparation. Because each die is used to strike thousands of coins, only the first few struck before the error was corrected carry that doubling, making them incredibly rare. Collectors prize these coins because they represent a one-time, unrepeatable event in minting history. The mint mark itself also adds another layer of intrigue. Before 1990, mint marks were hand-punched into dies, meaning that no two mint marks were ever perfectly identical. In the case of the 1970 D penny, there are known examples where this D's mint mark was punched more than once, slightly off-center, resulting in what's called a repunched mint mark, RPM. These tiny differences can drastically affect value. A sharp-eyed collector who spots a doubled or repunched D under magnification could be looking at a coin worth thousands or even millions, depending on the rarity of that exact variety. The condition of the coin plays a huge role in its value. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70 by professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company. A 1970 D penny that's uncirculated and in mint state condition, MS67 or higher, can already be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars if it's a rare variety. Combine that with a major mint error, and the value skyrockets. Some collectors and dealers estimate that a unique 1970 D Lincoln penny with an extraordinary combination of errors, such as a double die obverse, off-metal strike, and repunched mint mark, could realistically fetch upwards of hundreds of millions at auction due to its one-of-a-kind nature and historical importance. There's also the psychological aspect of coin collecting that influences value. When a coin becomes legendary among collectors, its value often transcends logic. The mystique surrounding coins like the 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double die cent shows how human fascination with rarity drives prices to unimaginable levels. The 1970 D penny follows in that same tradition. When stories emerged of extraordinary specimens being discovered in pocket change or inherited collections, people began searching their coins more closely, hoping to find a fortune hiding in plain sight. Beyond minting errors, there's also the possibility that some of these coins were experimental strikes or part of test runs during the mint's transition between dies or metal compositions. It's known that the US Mint often conducted tests to ensure quality and consistency, and sometimes experimental pieces accidentally entered circulation. A coin from such a test batch, particularly if it shows unique metal characteristics or striking differences, would be considered extremely valuable. Collectors often turn to microscopic and digital imaging to study the 1970 D penny for subtle differences. For instance, a die crack, a small raised line caused by a fracture in the die, can make a coin unique. Die breaks and die chips, where parts of the die deteriorate and cause extra metal blobs on the coin surface, are also signs of minting imperfections. These minor details, when combined with rarity and historical context, give the 1970s D penny its allure and astronomical potential value. Interestingly, the 1970s D penny also represents a turning point in American coinage history. The late 1960s and early 1970s were periods of major changes at the US Mint. The Mint was adjusting to new metal compositions, updated machinery, and the increasing demand for coins due to economic expansion. During such transitions, mistakes were bound to happen. With millions of coins being struck daily, even the smallest lapse in die alignment or preparation could produce an anomaly that would only be discovered decades later by dedicated collectors. When it comes to auction records, the 1970s D penny hasn't always been the headline-grabbing coin like the 1943 bronze cent or the 1958 double die. However, certain examples have still sold for astonishing sums because of their rare characteristics. Some have fetched tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the combination of visible errors and the grade. The legend of a 1970s D penny worth $590 million, while sensational, stems from the theoretical value of an absolutely unique specimen, one that embodies multiple rare errors and a pristine state of preservation. In the world of collectibles, especially coins, theoretical valuations often reflect what the market could pay if the perfect example ever surfaced. The allure of the 1970s D penny is not just in its financial value but in its mystery. Think about how many coins we handle daily without realizing what treasures might be among them. A simple penny that cost 1 cent to make could hold a secret that transforms it into one of the most valuable objects on Earth. That possibility keeps collectors motivated, searching through rolls, jars, and old collections, hoping to uncover the next great discovery. What makes the 1970s D penny story even more captivating is how errors reveal the human element behind coin production. Every error tells. Today's journey takes us into one of the most astonishing stories in American numismatic history, the 1976 Liberty 1 cent Lincoln penny that has stunned collectors around the world. Believe it or not, some rare examples of this humble-looking coin have been valued at an unbelievable $560 million because of extraordinary minting errors, mistakes, and mint mark anomalies that transformed an ordinary penny into one of the rarest treasures ever discovered in American currency. So, get ready as we explore what makes this coin so extraordinary, the history behind its creation, the kinds of minting errors that can multiply its worth beyond imagination, and the mystery that continues to captivate coin experts and treasure hunters alike. The 1976 Lincoln penny, part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, may seem common at first glance. Billions of these coins were struck by the U.S. Mint for circulation, featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But among these billions, a few rare varieties emerged due to minting errors that occurred under unique conditions, giving rise to some of the most valuable coins ever found in circulation. Collectors have always been fascinated by error coins because they represent accidents in the minting process that slipped through the mint's strict quality control and ended up in the hands of the public, often without anyone realizing it. For decades, the story of the 1976 1-cent coin begins in a year of great significance for the United States. It was America's bicentennial year, marking 200 years since the Declaration of Independence. Although special bicentennial designs were issued for quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins, the 1-cent coin kept its traditional Lincoln design. However, that doesn't mean the year 1976 wasn't special for penny collectors. During the production of these coins, various mistakes occurred at the Denver and Philadelphia mints, leading to several extraordinary varieties. Some of these were double die errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, or missing mint marks. Each type of error played a major role in increasing the coin's rarity and desirability. One of the most fascinating error types linked to the 1976 penny is the double die obverse. This occurs when the die used to strike the coins receives a misaligned or repeated impression of the coin's design. As a result, parts of the design appear doubled. On some 1976 pennies, the doubling is visible on Lincoln's profile, particularly around his eye, lips, and the inscriptions like "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1976. These doubling effects can range from slight and barely noticeable to extremely strong and dramatic, with the latter examples being the ones that command massive prices at auctions. Another major type of error involves off-center strikes. When a blank planchette, the metal disc that becomes a coin, is not properly aligned in the press, the die strikes it off-center, creating coins that can appear lopsided, with parts of the design missing. The degree of off-center striking determines its rarity and value. A slight misalignment might be worth a few dollars, but a 50% off-center strike showing a full date and mint mark can fetch thousands. For the 1976 penny, certain off-center strikes have been discovered with unique die characteristics that match known double die examples, combining two types of errors in one coin and pushing their potential value into the millions. But perhaps the most intriguing and valuable form of minting anomaly tied to the 1976 Lincoln penny is the missing mint mark error. Normally, coins minted in Denver bear a small D below the date, while those from Philadelphia have no mint mark at all. However, on rare occasions, dies that were supposed to have a mint mark failed to receive it before being used for striking. This leads to unusual varieties where a Denver minted coin lacks its D. If authentication confirms the coin originated from Denver without its mint mark due to a minting oversight, its value skyrockets. This anomaly has turned some 1976 pennies into legendary collector's items worth tens of millions. Some experts speculate that a few 1976 pennies struck at the Denver Mint were made using a die that had not yet been stamped with its D, the mint mark, but the press was mistakenly started, striking a limited batch of pennies without the identifying letter. Once the error was noticed, production was halted, and the mistake corrected, but the few that escaped the mint became priceless relics. These rare survivors are believed to be among the most valuable coins in U.S. history. Collectors also pay close attention to die cracks and die clashes on 1976 pennies. Over time, repeated striking causes stress fractures on the dies, leading to raised lines appearing on the coins. Some die cracks form unique shapes, sometimes appearing like extra letters, lines on Lincoln's face, or even unusual outlines around the memorial columns. Die clashes, on the other hand, happen when the dies strike each other without a planchette between them, imprinting faint traces of one design onto the opposite die. The result can be ghost-like images that collectors find fascinating and highly collectible. When such an anomaly appears clearly and on a coin from an already rare year, it can make that penny a small fortune waiting to be discovered. Let's talk about the composition of the 1976 penny. Like other Lincoln Memorial cents struck from 1959 to 1982, it's composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives it a rich reddish-brown tone that can vary based on how it has been stored. Uncirculated examples with full red luster are already desirable among collectors, but when that same coin also exhibits a major mint error, it becomes a numismatic treasure. The fact that copper prices have risen over the decades adds another layer of fascination to these coins, even though the true value lies in their rarity, not their metal content. What makes the $560 million figure so astonishing is that it represents not just monetary worth but also the immense collector interest and historical significance tied to these coins. Over the years, some collectors have paid record-breaking prices for mint-era coins because they represent something unique, a piece of history that wasn't meant to exist. There are stories of coins being discovered in old change jars, tucked away in drawers for decades, only to be later identified as multi-million-dollar rarities. Imagine finding a 1976 penny in your collection that looks slightly different and realizing it could be one of the most valuable coins on Earth. The incredible value of certain 1976 pennies also reflects the role of grading and authentication in the coin world. To determine whether a penny is genuinely valuable, it must be professionally evaluated by grading companies such as PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These experts examine every detail: the strike, the surface, the presence of doubling, mint marks, and even the tiniest variations in lettering. Coins graded as MS or mint state, particularly those above MS 65 with rare errors, can achieve astronomical auction results. One example of a remarkable find involved a collector who submitted a 1976 penny to PCGS after noticing unusual doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. To the collector's astonishment, the coin was authenticated as a dramatic double-die obverse, one of only a handful known. Its rarity, condition, and clear doubling propelled its estimated value into the multi-million-dollar range. Another instance saw a coin dealer uncovering a Denver-minted 1976 penny with no visibles D. Upon careful inspection and expert verification, it was determined to be a true missing mint mark error, instantly placing it among the most valuable modern coins ever found. But not all errors are visible to the naked eye. Some 1976 pennies have micro-anomalies like repunched mint marks, die deterioration doubling, or subtle planchette flaws that make them distinctive. These lesser-known varieties, while not worth hundreds of millions, can still command thousands or tens of thousands, especially when combined with pristine condition and full red luster. Every variation tells a story about the minting process, revealing the complex and sometimes unpredictable nature of coin production. Even environmental conditions play a role in how these coins age and appear. For example, certain 1976 pennies have developed beautiful rainbow-toned surfaces due to oxidation on copper, creating a spectrum of colors that attract collectors. If such toning occurs naturally and the coin also exhibits a rare error, the visual appeal combined with rarity can significantly increase its market value. What makes the 1976 1-cent coin so intriguing to collectors is not just the errors themselves, but the possibilities they represent. The idea that an everyday coin, worth just 1 cent, could turn out to be worth hundreds of millions captures the imagination of millions of people. It's a story that reminds us that history often hides in plain sight. Somewhere, perhaps in an old jar of pennies, or in a forgotten roll of change, there could still be undiscovered examples of these incredible 1976-era coins waiting to be found. Many collectors spend years searching through rolls of pennies, examining each coin under magnification, hoping to find one with a doubling, a missing mint mark, or a strange off-center strike. The thrill of discovery keeps the hobby alive and growing, connecting generations through the pursuit of hidden treasures. The 1976 Lincoln penny, with its rich historical backdrop and astonishing potential value, stands as a perfect example of why coin collecting is more than just a pastime. It's a modern-day treasure hunt when considering the